Ferrari boldly claimed before the summer break that there was no reason it couldn't win every remaining race in 2022, but now it looks like even a single victory might be out of reach. Red Bull and Max Verstappen are in dominant form, even though Ferrari has largely avoided things like the reliability problems and major strategy blunders that wrecked so many of its races in the first half of the year. Something's gone wrong with the F175 and the team has been left struggling to find the cause. Throw in comments from the big boss at Ferrari, chairman John Elkann, that the team makes too many mistakes but is expected to win a title in the next 3 seasons, and the pressure will be rising at Maranello to find answers. Runaway championship leaders Red Bull and Verstappen have now won 5 races in a row, even though varying circumstances have meant Verstappen started well out of position several times. Charles Leclerc led in Hungary before fading badly as Verstappen charged from 10th to win after an engine issue in qualifying. Then Carlos Sainz turned pole position at Spa into a 3rd placed finish, nearly 27 seconds behind Verstappen, who won despite engine change penalties forcing him to start 14th. At Zandvoort, Leclerc was narrowly beaten to pole by Verstappen but would likely have finished the race off the podium and behind both Mercedes without safety car interventions that helped him take 3rd. And in Italy, even though Leclerc started from pole, Verstappen won despite starting 7th after a smaller grid penalty for another engine change. The main Ferrari explanation for its struggles over race distances is that it's got its car balance wrong, in a way that's exaggerated the thermal degradation of the tyres. One of Ferrari's theories for this is whether aerodynamic development has created those problems. It even ran an older specification of floor in Friday practice at Monza on Sainz's car as a means of testing this, despite the high-speed track not exactly being the best place for such an experiment. Even though the cause is uncertain, the effect is obvious. The fall-off in race pace has been evident since Hungary. Up until that time, the Ferrari had set 7 poles from 12 dry qualifying sessions and a wet pole for Sainz at Silverstone. Although only 4 victories were scored in that time, the mismatch wasn't usually down to any major lack of race pace. There were tracks which highlighted the car's tendency to overwork its outer front tyre and induce graining, but there was no particular issue with rear temperatures. Then in the 3 races before the Italian Grand Prix, where an old issue returned, Ferrari struggled with the balance of getting its tyres up to temperature well in qualifying and preventing them from overheating in the race. In the build-up to the Monza weekend, Sainz offered 3 plausible theories for why Ferrari's form has slumped: overheating the tyres, being outdeveloped by rivals, and making setup errors. Clearly Sainz is right about the first issue, and as we've covered already, Ferrari is already working on identifying the root cause of that, even if it turns out to be self-inflicted. As we run through the other theories, make sure you let us know in the comments which one you think makes the most sense. And if you want to leave us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, then that would also be much appreciated. It's obvious that Ferrari's rivals are improving constantly. Just as Ferrari has hit a sticky patch, Red Bull's flexing its muscles, and Mercedes is re-entering the picture. Red Bull has continued to shed weight from its RB18, the car's balance has been continually refined with steady tweaks to its floor edges, and it has definitely become faster, at least in Verstappen's hands. At Monza, Red Bull's aerodynamic efficiency allowed it to pick a higher downforce rear wing without being destroyed on the straights. This afforded greater tyre protection, while Ferrari's lower wing levels accentuated a difficulty with the front left. Meanwhile at Mercedes, it has understood its troublesome W13 much better in recent races and is now beginning to tease Ferrari matching speed from it. So yes, some of what Ferrari is experiencing is down to what Sainz calls others getting better, but Ferrari still needs to ask why it hasn't been able to improve its own car at a similar or better rate. And what about the final theory, that it's simply a setup issue? Well, at Monza there was a different limitation. Ferrari was degrading the left front far faster than the Red Bull, and that was only partly about the respective wing levels each car was carrying. So could this point to Ferrari simply failing to find the right balance across the front and rear axles? Perhaps the efforts to protect the front left after sensitivities in the first half of the year led to overheating the rears, which we saw to an exaggerated effect at Spa and Zandvoort. Perhaps Ferrari undid that at Monza, along with running a higher engine mode to try to maximise one-lap performance at its home race, only to run back into trouble again on the front axle in the Grand Prix. It's impossible to know from the outside what setup choices have been made during this run. It's clear the layout of Spa was unsuited to the Ferrari's strengths in the corners and played to its inherent weakness with drag at high speed. But there's nothing about the layout of the Hungaroring or Zandvoort which should have led to any more setup difficulties than the tracks on which the car was extremely competitive earlier in the season, like Barcelona, the Red Bull Ring and Paul Ricard. It raises one final question to ponder. Has the FIA's Flexi Floor technical directive played a role? The new TD concerning vertical oscillations and plank mounting came into force at Spa, one race after Ferrari lost pace. Ferrari team boss Mattia Binotto has emphatically denied any influence from this on Ferrari's lack of performance at Spa, but could it be possible that Ferrari ran to the new interpretation one race early so as to prepare for how to manage it and its effects? And if so, is that the real reason for the car's recent balance problems? The silver lining that Ferrari has clung to this season is that there's still been a massive step forward this year. After 2 seasons without a victory in F1, Ferrari has used the new technical regulations to return to the front of the grid with the fastest car of 2022, at least in qualifying. Ferrari has claimed 10 pole positions this season, 5 more than Red Bull, but its win tally is much smaller, just 4 victories to Red Bull's 12. Errors from Leclerc, strategic howlers and engine failures have combined to undermine Ferrari's championship bid, and Red Bull is easing towards clinching both the drivers' and constructors' titles well before the season ends. The situation has brought out a veiled warning from Ferrari chairman John Elkann, who gave an interview with Italian newspaper Gazzetta dello Sport before the Italian Grand Prix. Elkann praised Ferrari's return to competitiveness and the work behind the scenes to improve, and reiterated the great faith Ferrari has in Binotto, who has overseen the turnaround but also takes ultimate responsibility for the team's errors this season. But Elkann also stressed an almost universal need to improve, putting the responsibility on the mechanics, engineers, drivers and entire management team. He criticised too many mistakes on reliability, driving and strategy, and said he's not satisfied because Ferrari can always do better. Binotto has been a key part of Ferrari trying to move away from a culture of fear and blame that's risked undermining Maranello pretty much throughout the team's entire history. But he has often been guilty this season of not fronting up to mistakes, particularly where strategy is concerned, as even Ferrari hasn't been able to hide its obvious reliability flaws. While nobody expects the old Ferrari habit of firing a bunch of people to be a successful reaction, there has been a growing perception outside the team that Binotto will not make the necessary changes to its processes to eliminate errors. The message does appear to finally be changing. Binotto said in Italy there are certainly areas of improvements required with its race management, highlighting the pit stops and strategy decisions as weaknesses. He also explicitly stated, "We're still making mistakes," which seems a trivial point to pick up on, but it is a significant and very clear admission. Though Ferrari keeps saying expectations were not to win the title this season, it's been so wasteful that it's under pressure to even finish second in the championship. Slipping up so badly that it ends this year third would be a big underachievement for Ferrari, and Elkann has made it clear he believes Ferrari will win both championships before the rules change in 2026. Ferrari is clearly still not at the level required to do that. That's why even with the championships long gone, the end of this season is still important. Ferrari needs to prove that it can address mistakes and solve problems. Ultimately, it needs to work out how to win again in 2022 before it can convince itself and the outside world that grander long-term goals are actually achievable.